Hello, this is Deborah Yao with Black Education TV. I'm going to be reading to you a comment left by Brown Guy 7113. I thought it was an awesome comment and worth mentioning, okay? It says this. It says, it's just like the garden that Sister Deborah is cultivating. We must weed out the ones who are hateful towards their own kinsmen, cut them out of our garden of unity. As you may know, weeds will overtake the vegetables or fruit that grow and flourish in a garden. The same principle should be applied to some of our people. They will never grow and be a part of our conscious garden of a strong and wise community. Therefore, we as a nation should cut ties with them and leave them to their own devices. Now, this comment was left under one of my recent videos, and I thought it was just so noteworthy because it is very true that we have got to get to the point where those of our people who are growing up as weeds among us, choking out the life of the good that is supposed to grow through us, we got to cut them out, de-weed our spiritual garden. Those in our communities who refuse to do right, now I can't tell you what to do. If you want to wallow with them and say and make excuses for them and talk about the curses and how they were raised and nobody taught them and nobody showed them. I say this often because we see these excuses a lot. If that's what you want to do, if you feel your mission is to continue to try to browbeat them with truth until they come around, you do that. Okay? Notice Yahusha never did that. He never browbeat anyone with the truth. He said if you go into a city and you drop the truth on someone, you lay it at their door and they don't receive it, it says shake the dust off your feet and keep it moving. That's where I am, family. And that's where I suggest many of us should be, because we struggle so long trying to get people to do right. And they sometimes pull you down or backwards. We don't have time for that. We have got to do, as this brother stated in this comment, is do some cultivating. Get the weeds out of our gardens, out of our communities. If you want to grow up and be a weed, you go somewhere else. Okay? But we that want to grow and flourish together in righteousness, we've got to figure out how to do this thing, because we don't have a lot of time to keep messing around with weeds in the garden. Even the scripture talks about the separation of the wheat from the tares. That's a very natural process. And to think that you're supposed to allow the tares and the weeds to continue to grow with you is utter nonsense. I know from experience that weeds can take over a garden. They can take over a garden. Every so often we got to get out there and de-weed and pluck up some things and take it over there, let the chickens eat it, or just destroy it or throw it away. You can't let weeds take over, and that's what happens in our community sometimes. We believe that we're supposed to just allow the weeds to just run amok, grow bigger than the actual fruits or vegetables that are good for us, to the point where they actually take over. And that's what we see in the black community. This is why you'll have someone who is trying to do their best. You have others belittling them, saying, oh, you think you're this or you think you're that. Folk being called a nerd because they don't want to hang out in the streets. I mean, we've had people in our neighborhood who have actually said things about how we allow our children, or how things we don't allow our children to do, like loaf up and down the streets, back and forth, being out all kinds of night. We've had people say, let them kids go out and play. It's like our children do play. They just don't run up and down the streets like yours. To me, that's not playing. Just because you can run up and down the street and hang out with kids who are getting into all kinds of things. Just because you don't consider riding your bike or fishing, playing volleyball with your family, going to the park, doing certain things, riding your scooters, just because you don't consider those things fun. Everyone is different. If you think it's fun to allow children, or permissible that your children go up and down the streets and get into trouble and doing this and getting into fights and stuff and people calling the police on them. If that's what you call fun or the way you want to raise your children, so be it. But just because my children like to paint or draw or play the piano or the guitar, it doesn't make them nerds. It doesn't make them any less than any other child because they don't want to do certain things or we don't allow them to run up and down the street. When we go for bike rides, we go for bike rides as a family and we all enjoy it. Now, when I was a kid, when I was coming up, things were different. And I will admit that coming up, I used to be allowed to stay out till 1 o'clock in the morning, ride my bike, me and my sisters and brothers and cousins. I remember 1 o'clock at night, we would be just all in the neighborhood, nighttime, dark time, riding our bikes, not just on our block, but around the block. Now, that's something I would not allow my children to do. Now, if you allow your children to do that, again, that's on you. But it amazes me how people like to say that you are keeping your children from life because you don't let them loaf up and down the streets. That's how we roll against one another. We are not paying attention to the signs of the time. Scripture says, woe unto you that call good evil and evil good. Woe unto you. It amazes me how we as a people are towards one another. And so this is why this brother's comment really stuck out. That when you find people who want to be a certain way, you got to cut them off. You have got to cut them off. If you want to progress in life, you've got to cut off dead weight. It doesn't matter if they're family, if you went to school with them and they were your best friend, but now they decide they want to grow up and sell drugs, be in gangs, get high all the time, party and club all the time. If that's not the lifestyle you live, don't feel like you're obligated to still keep that friendship just because you went to school together. If this person wants to throw their life away, you don't have to be a part of that. That's the problem we have. We think just because someone is family or friends, or I went to school with him or I went to school with her, you think that you have to put up with whatever they do. And that is not the truth. As for me and my house, we will serve Yah. That's how we're going to roll. And I totally agree, 100%. There used to be a time that I felt like we really got to work with them. That ain't what the scripture says. What you owe people is to pray for them. But when they want to live opposite of what the word says, what fellowship have light with darkness? That's what the scripture says. What fellowship have light with darkness? If you have someone in your family that wants to walk in darkness, you're not obligated to walk in it with them. Cut them loose. Cut them off. You can try to pray that they come and find their way back to the light, but if they don't want to, let them go. It's that simple. Because we have to forge ahead, family. We have lots and lots of work to do, lots of preparation, and we have to fortify at this point. Strengthen that which remains. Those of us of the remnant who want to be and do the right thing, we have to fortify. And those who don't want to do the right thing, like the brother said, leave them to their own devices. And with that, I will say shalom.